Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of this course on sport marketing and communication. Today, we're going to be talking about event management and the aspects of event management and everything around that and how it relates to our subject matters and sports industry. So I'm going to, again, share my screen. Slideshow. What's the introduction here? Sport event management. So we're going to talk about all functions related to really what sport managers do, plan and implement and evaluate sport events. And we are going to discuss primarily an event like a professional collegiate game of any sport. We're also going to discuss these subject matters around things like tournaments, maybe even a something that may be a broadcast event. So obviously event management requires financial planning and budgeting. There are risk management elements to it. We're going to talk about all things operations around not only tournament, but again, event game day operations, how people register for events. We might consider season ticket holders as registrants or ticket buyers as registrants, not just people who sign up for a race or a tournament, a youth tournament. How volunteers are involved and how they're important to successful events, such as a PGA Tour event. And of course, marketing, how an event, a game, a tournament, a broadcast is marketed, and what that's for, which again, I think most of you know by now, but we are going to, of course, emphasize those things. Just again, we always cover a little bit of history. And so, I think we take for granted a little bit that maybe sports events, we know what that is, but it had to start somewhere. What are the roots? There were in the 1800s when things started to focus on the professional aspects of managing sport. Because of course, people who realized that sports could be and would be popular were trying to monetize them, right? Generate revenue from them, same back then as it is today. And a gentleman named Albert Spalding, you'll recognize that last name, was kind of a pioneer in this aspect. And originally, because baseball again in the 1800s was very popular, and other athletes like boxers were very popular. Sort of the early roots. Excuse me, I'm going to stop to mute this for a second. Apologize about that. Anyway, early forms, early roots of sport management revolved around what they called barnstorming tours, essentially taking professional star athletes, people that were popular around the country, and having them people come out and watch them or meet them. And early promoters or event managers, of course, charged patrons for the opportunity to do that, similar to today. In the 60s, and then what we know today is sport agencies, sport management agencies started to emerge. IMG, which was and is still in existence today, is a huge global agency that manages all kinds of sport related services. Athletes is how they got their start, primarily around Arnold Palmer. Again, Mark McCormick was the founder of that agency and realized the power of television, the power of athletes, and how they could monetize their images. And he got involved in that way. And nowadays we have many kinds of agencies that manage events on their own or on behalf of clients. And there are so many functions that they manage, and we'll talk about those. Again, what are they? agencies themselves. I kind of run my own agency, but when we think of agencies primarily, I think most people think of athlete agents, people that represent them and negotiate their contracts for them and get a percentage of commission usually to do that work on behalf of a star athlete. And there's lots of great examples of that. And there's, of course, a famous movie from the 90s starring Tom Cruise called Jerry Maguire that covers that topic very well. It's very funny. And so much of that movie is still true today, I can tell you. But client representation, they market themselves on behalf of the client. They can take a percentage of a client's contract that they get paid to perform, but at a certain percentage that the market dictates. But they make more commission if they help a client and they market a client to get other revenue or forms of income through marketing aspects. They could take a higher percentage of that to get compensated for helping that athlete do those things. Of course, there are agencies that develop their own events and then operate them from concept to completion. Some agencies just get paid a service fee, professional service fee to manage events because again, they're experts at it and somebody hires them to do that. All game day television productions, radio productions. There are companies that do nothing but do that. And that again is a form of sport event management. Related to client marketing is sponsorship solicitation. There are agents and agencies that do nothing but act on as a third party to secure revenue for an event, for a game, for a tournament, solicit and secure corporate sponsorships, hospitality services. We might think of a PGA Tour event with a chalet where people can go eat and drink and are taken care of in those ways, to watch golf tournament or other kind of tournament. There's agencies that do nothing but those kinds of things. Lots of grassroots programs, agencies that are hired to do market research on behalf of a client looking for data or information before they pursue a project. And of course, there are some, or as part of an agent, they might do some financial planning, some budget planning on behalf of a client as well. So, and there's so many tasks within these sort of functions or these roles that sports agents and agencies manage specifically around these services for events and athletes. So what are some of those functions? Again, as outlined some of the roles, what are some of those functions? Again, I just went through that. Client representation, event development and management. I work with a guy right now that's what he does, and thus that's what I do. We partner together to help start a new developmental baseball league in Texas, and we're working on that right now. There's an increase for people who really understand what it's like to put on an event, or there's an event that's scheduled, but it's going to go either a live stream or a network broadcast. And so there are companies and agents that negotiate and or operate those functions turnkey for a client. Again, some of these other services I mentioned on the slide before, but of course, what's really, really important after the fact is you want to evaluate. Again, some of you may have heard this, and I might mention it in a previous lecture, even though it's a marketing course. So there's talking about management and marketing management. All managers, of course, do event planning or do the functions of management, which is goal setting and planning and task assignment, implementation, and evaluation. And we will make sure through evaluation that what we've planned and what we've done on behalf of our clients is working. And there's data we have to collect through different means to do that, through things that the slide here shows, like surveys and focus groups and impact surveys, asking the right questions to try to find out the data that you want. You want to do a proof of performance. A lot of the companies I've worked for and a lot of the teams I've worked for, on behalf of the clients, your sponsors, you want to do a proof of performance. You want to be able to prove that what you said they were going to get through their participation in your event, they were getting. So, there's that aspect of ROI there that clients want to know. So agents, sometimes as part of their overall functions, or sometimes they hire it out, want to make sure we're evaluating. Good managers always want to evaluate if things are working. It's a continuous cycle, of course, right? You want to make sure things are working. You want to do it in real time in case you need to adjust and change as you go. You may set a plan. You may say implement a plan, but if you evaluate as you go and you need to change, right, on behalf of the client, or even if you're your own developer, you want to make sure things are working out as you plan, and if not, you need to make adjustments and changes so that you reach your goals along the way. Different types of agencies. A lot of these big ones like IMG and Octagon are full service agencies that perform most of those things on those past two slides. But there are some agencies, like I said, that do more specialized, localized functioning on behalf of clients. And then there are what we might consider divisions or departments of larger companies that are sort of their own agencies. And you might consider a professional sports team in this regard. So technically they're not agents or agencies, but you have a sponsorship department, you have a public relations department, of course, you have a marketing and communications department, and they work on behalf of their clients and or the property or the team itself to do a lot of those same functioning. So an agent is just a representation. Agency is just the functioning of doing these duties on behalf of something, right? Again, getting into some more information about what some of these functions are. Not all event managers must oversee the following critical functions, or sorry, nearly all of them. Of course, you want to make sure you're on budget, right? Part of the very first thing you're going to do is maybe not the very first thing. The second thing is you're going to have a vision about something. You're going to say, okay, what's the purpose of this? Okay, great. Now we set goals for that. And around those goals, you've got to immediately start building budgeting. Because I always work backwards. What's the goal? What's the number that we need to do to make sure that we're at least breaking even? What do we want to go for if we want to turn a certain percentage of profit? You've got to, of course, be involved where the numbers are to make sure it's even worth it. And as you go, if you're going to hit your benchmarks along the way, or risk management, which is really a legal aspect of event management. Most of risk management we talk about is managing against the risk of being sued is really what the form of risk management we're talking about. That typically functions around things like bodily injury, insurance, but you've got to make sure if you're going to put on an event, a tournament, a game, a season of games, that you've got a risk management plan for all kinds of things, whether it be some of the horrible things that happen in live events these days. Because again, we have to look at worst case scenario, understand what potential risks there are out there, and then manage those and have a plan in place so that we mitigate anything like that happening. And again, ideally, the main thing you're trying to mitigate is your exposure to liability, thus being sued. That's the main thing for anything. Again, injury, fraud, negligence, whatever it might be. Again, this bullet point says tournament operations, but again, you can think of game day operations, a season of game day operations, maybe a weekend event that involves, sport and music, anything that's operations around an event. So I should probably amend that slide to mention those things, but not just tournament operations, but event operations. Again, registration. You're out there putting an event on for the public. To hopefully again have fun or do something that's meaningful in their lives, and so you have to have a way to figure out who's coming, right? Who's going to register to play in this youth tournament? Who's going to register to come to this weekend event? Who's going to buy a pass? Who's going to buy a season ticket? Who's going to buy a mini plan? Those are forms of registrations, and of course, all agents and event marketers and managers have to plan for this stuff. I'm telling you, almost every team or organization I've worked for has had some level of what we may call volunteers. I know around obviously professional golf tournaments is the greatest example of that, where the local club that's hosting the tournament employs the club members to be volunteers to make sure the operations, again, back to the operations, run smoothly, from guest hospitality to marshaling to parking attendants, or there's so many different things that volunteers do. In our world, what we do, some are pure volunteers that just want to come out and volunteer to be ushers or things that work around your particular game or your event. Others aren't technically volunteers, but there are interns for college credit or even maybe for small pay, a small amount of pay for in exchange for something else. And of course, all event management functions include the marketing. Again, we're in a marketing and communications class. Doesn't do anything good if you've done great goal setting and planning, and you don't have the right messages. You can't reach the target audience, and you can't get people to engage or take action to come to your tournament, come to your event, watch your game. Right. So you've got to be really, really good in this aspect. And marketing is, of course, what we're focusing on in this class. Again, budget and financing, very, very critical. It's part of your evaluation process to make sure you're on task. Nobody ever wants to lose money. Of course, worst case scenario is that you're breaking even, but that'd be a lot of work if you're in a for-profit situation. But even if you're in a nonprofit situation, you're trying to generate enough revenue or donations or support that you're not only covering your expenses for the event, but you can put some money in your bank to do other things as you go down the road, whatever you have goals for, plans for, that you have needs for. So you've got to, of course, budget. This is what I was talking about in zero-based budgeting, review of all the activities related to cost of an event as if it were the first time. And then you want a cash flow. Okay, when is our revenue coming in? When are our registrants, ticket buyers, pass holders, sponsors going to pay for things we've asked them to invest in? Where's that money come in? So you know how much is coming in at any particular time as it relates to how much money is going out at any particular time. And sometimes they're not always in sync, right? Sometimes there's a lot more money going out than coming in, but later on there's more money coming in than going out. And again, as if you understand where cash flow is coming from and how you plan for that, it's very, very important. So those that own it or whatever lines of credit or everybody you're working with that you have cash sources for, financial sources for. Again, you understand where the money's going as it comes in and leaves your operation. Very important, very important. Again, as I mentioned before, risk management, protecting the organization, again, your team, the agent itself, if it's its own marketing agency that runs its own event. Anything that go wrong due to a loss, financial loss, equipment, property damage, loss of goodwill, loss of market share, anything that is a risk, you want to have a plan to protect the organization from. But again, primarily it's from the risk of exposure for liability. Again, always have to have a plan. What if there's an active shooter? What if there's a natural disaster? What if there's a storm moving? What if there's lightning in the area? What if equipment breaks? What if the lights go out? There's so many different things. What if there's a fire, God forbid? All these things that sound like terrible things, you have to, again, think about worst case scenario. If it happens, what's our plan? And then you practice it. You have everybody in your team go through it so they know exactly what their role is. So again, to mitigate anything negative or bad happening, and anybody getting hurt or injured or worse. And of course you have to purchase insurance around these things. So in case something does go wrong, you're covered, you can pay those bills. And that's what insurance companies do. And part of your good solid risk management plan is knowing, back to the budgeting side, that you've got to budget for and invest in proper insurance coverage. And there's legal aspects around that. You can't even do certain things without proving that you have a certificate of insurance. You can't even occupy spaces or even have an event without insurance first. So sometimes that's one of the first things you're going to do up front before you can even move forward with certain aspects of an event. And again, it's part of that risk management plan. Operations, as I mentioned, operations is a fancy word that just basically says how we getting stuff done, who's doing what, and what are all the things, all the tasks that we've got to do to make sure our event, our game, our season it goes off, and who are doing those things. This is the nuts and the bolts of the event, as the slide says. And again, patrons or fans that go to a game or go to an event sort of see what's happening while the event's going on in real time. But of course, us managers understand that there's pre-event planning, there's actual event planning, there's post-event planning and operations that happen along that way. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now with the team in the league down in Texas. This is a lot of pre-event. We've never had a game. We've never had a season yet. This is brand new. And so we're doing all our pre-event planning right now. And there's a lot of work that's going on. If anybody wants to know more about it, I'd be happy to tell you about it. But a lot of things going on in the pre-event planning phase right now. As part of the operations, there's literally a script, right? Game day comes, the event comes, who's doing what, who's following the timeline, what's happening, when and where, and who's doing it. A huge master plan that's literally a script that's detailed minute by minute throughout the entire event to make sure everybody's on the same page and communicating properly about who's doing what and when and where. And then, of course, after the event, after the season, after the game, after the tournament, there's everything you've got to do after that. The takedown, the reevaluation, the putting things in storage, the packing up to move on to the next city, whatever it happens to be. Lots of operational activities that happen post-event too. And again, fans and patrons really only see, as rightly so, what's happening during the event as it's happening itself. One thing I want to say here, and this is really, really important, you'll have to know it. I would say out of everything we're talking about in terms of event marketing or Oregon sport marketing and management and communications boils down to the event itself. There's almost every aspect we're going to talk about in this course, every other chapter, every other slide presentation, every other lecture, sort of, maybe I should save this one for the end of the course because it's leading up to what we're talking about. Everything we're talking about is okay. Leading to when you have a game, when you put on a season, when you put on a tournament, when you put on a sporting event. Everything else we talk about is really for the purpose of having an event. So this is sort of the most important discussion or chapter we're going to talk about is this event marketing and event management, because again, everything else we're talking about is all leading to the actual sporting event where people and patrons and people come and enjoy themselves. And that's why you do it. That's why you put in the long hours and the hard work. And so it's event management sort of summarizes or uh, uh, it captures almost every other aspect we're going to talk about in this class. All right. Again, tournament, event, game day, season operations you plan, right? Stadium, arena, park, multiple venues. What equipment do we need? What's happening where and when? What's the timeline? What's the agenda? Are we making sure we're taking care of the sponsors that are investing? Do they have their signs? Do they have their hospitality? Do they have their activation ready to go? Got to make sure we feed and provide drinks for our patrons that are coming to our event. Who's taking care of that? What's on the menu? How much does it cost? Where are we serving it? Who's doing it? Same thing with merchandise. What does it look like? Who's designing it? Who's printing it, manufacturing it, producing it, shipping it, putting it in inventory, displaying it, taking cash for it, depositing cash for it. So many things around that. Is anybody going to cover our events? What media is coming? Do they have passes and credentials for access? Where do we allow them to go? Where are they going to sit? Do we have power? Where are they going to plug in to do their work? Where are they going to park? Who do they talk to if they have problems? What's happening during the event for promotional activities, not only for sponsors, but other things to make it fun? Are we doing contests? What music are we playing? What giveaways are we going to do? And who's taking care of all that? How are people getting here? Where are they going to park? Are we going to charge for that? We're going to do maps. We're going to work with the local community to make sure everybody understands if there's problems getting in and out of our event venue or venues. Do we have a place for our athletes to live or stay? Is there a host hotel? Are we getting apartments, depending on the event itself? Right? Everybody on staff, how are we communicating? Are we using two-way radios? Very, very important for all event management. That's why you see people with little earpieces in, or maybe even a walkie-talkie classic two-way radio. You want to make sure everybody's in communication. I can't tell you how important it is to have walkie-talkies or two-way radios for all event management. It's just critical. Things happen so much in real time, and everybody works on different channels, and different channels are assigned different things. Like this one's for cleanup, and this is for security, and this one's for first aid. This one's for whatever else. So there's lots of things that you do. Two-way radios are so important. That's part of the communication plan, but also through email and text, and making sure people get the information, who needs to get it, what's the information, who's writing it. Personnel, again, responsibilities. What's our staff? All of these things over here, who's doing what and where, what are we paying them? How have we budgeted for that? And then almost like an org chart, who reports to who, up to who, right? Again, this is all part of this staff communication. Also part of your risk management plan. Oh my gosh, does everybody know what their role is? God forbid something goes wrong here at our event. Who we hiring to make sure people are safe here and feel secure. Third party, uniform, we have our own people. Are we making sure that people with different abilities and disabilities are going to feel welcome and comfortable? Have we provided for them? Have we thought of everything they're going to need? Have we made sure that people understand what our policies are around drinking alcohol, if that's what we're doing in our event, which of course is a big part of sporting events, right? What announcements are we going to make? How do we make sure our security staff knows what's going on? And this is all about crowd control. Ingress, people coming in, egress, people going out, how they flow around our event, where they're going to sit, where they're going to park, all kinds of things to make sure that the event that we put on, the game we put on, is enjoyable for everybody. Who's coming and how do we get them to come? How much are they going to pay? Where do they pay? What are they signing up for? What are the rights and benefits? What do they get? What piece of software are we using? Right? Back to that communication thing, not only communication amongst our staff, but communication, again, part of the marketing function to the people that we want to register for our game, for our tournament, for our event, nonprofit event, our 5K walk, our youth tournament, our opening night game day, our season, right? How do people sign up to come? Do we make it easy? It's that sort of initial handshake. These days people want convenience. They want understanding, ease of communication. Makes that good first impression this is talking about. So again, back to the planning phase. You want to make sure that you've got everything thought of for when you're asking people to come and support what you do. They know how to do it and can do it easily. That's convenient for them. We as marketers, sport management marketers, and event operators, you want to generate as much revenue. You need as many people to register for your event as possible. You need as many tickets, season ticket holders or pass holders or participants to participate in your youth tournament or your 5K run, right? And therefore, the more people that come, ideally, better for sponsors. The more revenue you generate, the more things you can do with revenue, as we've talked about a lot. You can't do anything without revenue, right? So it's very, very important. And what we as marketers want to do is figure out a way to lower the hurdle for participation, right? The more steps or the harder it is for a registrant or a fan or a patron to be involved with our event, the less likely we are to have the kind of crowd sizes we want, which mitigates or minimizes the amount of revenue we can do. So we're always looking for ways. There's lots of people out there looking for ways to help us as event managers and marketers tell people and lower the bar, lower the hurdle for participation. The easier it is, the more convenient it is, the more options we give them, the more likely they are to commit, take a call to action, and be involved, and then thus give us money for something, to come to our game, to come to our tournament, to sign their kid up, to buy something. That's what we're always trying to do. Marketers, of course, number one job is to generate demand, right? That if you get the right message, deliver something that wants somebody to make a decision to take an action on something, right? So it's very, very important that through this registration system, if we want to call that, you make a good first impression, you make it easy for those people that want to register to come to our event or sign up for season tickets. What do we want to know about them, and how are we collecting it? And what are we going to do with that data? How's it going to be stored? What's our plan for retarget marketing of that? Right? All the things, all the messages that we're inundated with on a daily basis, we're getting retargeted all the time. Well, sports managers, sport marketers are no different. Okay. So things you want to consider: how many people do you want to sign up? Again, what information do we need from them? How much are we going to charge them? What happens if there's a rain out or other kinds of things we need to inform them about should a problem arise? What's our system for collecting that information? And again, this bullet point, is hearkening to if it's a youth tournament of some kind, people are minors, do we want to make sure that what kind of consent is given? Again, back to the risk management thing, right? That people are authorized to sign for people of that are of minor age to come to our event. So all these things we have to consider before we even start marketing our event, right? All this is the pre-planning stuff, the pre-event stuff that we're talking about. Sometimes takes months, years, or sometimes even years. If you're going to have volunteers, again, how many do you need? And you determine that based on what your needs are in different areas of your operations, right? Where do they come from? How do we market to them? How do we tell them about what we're needing? Again, what are we communicating to them? How do they sign up? How do they register to be a volunteer? What rights and benefits do we need to give them to get them interested in being a volunteer, right? We're not paying them, but are there other things we can do to take care of them that make them feel important and entice them to try to want to help our event? Even once they sign up, we have to make sure they understand what we going to need them to do, right? Got to go find them. Once they sign up, we've got to train them. And then somebody's got to manage the volunteers. Excuse me. A lot of times what you do to keep the volunteers happy is you feed them, right? You give them swag, as you should, right? You want to take care of these people. They're such a big, important part of your operations that if you didn't have them, you really could not pull it off. And therefore you want to take care of them. It goes back to, again, budgeting. Okay, if we're going to feed these people, how many people we feed and what do we feed them? How much does it cost us and who's doing it? Right? Oh, we're going to give them a cap and we're going to give them a parking pass. Okay, what do those look like? Where do we tell them to go? So there's just so much around this, and somebody again has to manage all that. There are people that do nothing but manage the volunteer force. Marketing, again, back to what we talked. Didn't do any good if you have great planning and all that kind of stuff. You can't figure out a way to create demand for your event, for your game, for your season, for your tournament, for your swim meet, for your 5K run, for your charity walk. Who's our target market? How are we trying to reach them? What are our messages? How do we take an integrated approach across all our communications channels that get the word out and create that demand that we're talking about? Very, very important that you have a strategy, and then within that strategy, right, working backwards from your goals and your needs. What's the strategy, and then what's the task within your strategic plan? And there are 9 main functions in a consistent manner that you've got to manage and take care of. Increase the number of events has led to an increase in competitions for sponsors. Sponsors are hit up all the time to support different things. As you can imagine, if you were somebody whose job it is to determine where your marketing dollars are go, and you have a certain amount set aside in your overall marketing budget for sports or sport related event marketing, sponsorships, and people know that, they're going to call you and ask you and try to solicit you and present to you. Therefore, there's a lot of competition out there. And so you have to be really, really good with your rights and benefits and what you're proposing. And again, how you're going to show eventual sponsor why it's worth it for them to invest in your event, with your season, to your team, to your games. And in terms of financial success and reaching your financial goals, you have to have sponsors. Such an important part of what you do. You're relying on. If you're a nonprofit, you're looking for donors and sponsors. If you're a for-profit, you're looking for sponsors or in-kind partners to get done what you need to do. The approaches are really, really similar. Sometimes the goals are different. The wording is maybe different, but you're still soliciting potential sponsors. You're looking for categories. You're looking for your prospect lists, and you're doing that follow-up, and you're ideally presenting them in a consultative way why your event is worth them investing in. right? We talked about that, I think, in the sponsorship um, lecture. There are agencies will do this for you. Well, I have a good friend that works for an agency up in Cleveland, and there's people that come to them and say, look, since you guys have the expertise and have the people on staff, we're going to pay you to go out and solicit sponsorships for us because you have the contacts and you know what to say and how to do it. Or if you're the event itself or you're a team, you're going to have your in-house, quote unquote, department or staff that's going to solicit sponsors on your behalf. Advertising is related to marketing, right? I look at advertising, marketing, community relations, public relations, media relations. When I set up the staffs, I start with the communications department. Communications is everything that we're talking about, and underneath that, you're gonna have marketing and advertising, and media buying, and you're gonna have community relations, and you're gonna have public relations, and you're gonna have media relations. All the ways that our organization uh, has a public facing public face, right? All the ways that we engage with the public, how we communicate all our messages to all these particular segments, target audiences, all are in the communications umbrella. And within that are all those things that I just mentioned, right? And so advertising, buying traditional media for your own event, as part of your overall plan is important. Again, um, you may be looking for a media buy that has television or digital marketing or whatever that may be, advertising and broadcast entities. I like to do for branding purposes. And again, deciding what your message is through your advertising and marketing, what are you trying to do? I like to do outdoor billboards for big, broad brand building, right? Not a whole lot of call to action there, So it's just a particular strategy, but advertising could be part of it. I think what the slide is also trying to tell us when authors put together is that there are agents and agencies that do advertising buys on behalf of clients, and some of those are sports clients, right? I'll buy your advertising for you, or we're nothing but an advertising agency. We know how to buy media. We know how to negotiate those deals. We know what to look for. And if you have advertising as part of your budget, we can help you navigate those waters. Public relations or media relations, they're related, sometimes not always, the same. Public relations, again, is about image, brand protection. You can spend a whole lot of time and energy and money making sure that you have a good public relations image. Ideally, that's hopefully a true representation of your organization and your values and what you want the world to know about you, and then protecting it. Media relations is a way that you, of course, try to go out there and earn media, as we talked about, where you might have something that's interesting around your event, and you're going to market to media entities about different things you may want them to cover. And if they cover it for you, that's good for their readership or their viewership. You get the certain media out there. Very, very important that you have good working relationships with members of the media for the thing I just mentioned. What did I do early on in my career? How do you maintain those relations? Just like anything else, you got to treat them with respect. You got to take care of them. You have to provide for them what they need to make their jobs easy. You have to give them access. You have to make sure there are guidelines and rules. But sometimes you take care of them with, again, hospitality, food, beverage, access, passes, whatever you need to do to make sure that they take an interest in your event or your team or your season, and communicate to their readership, to their subscribers, to their viewers, what they want those people to know. And ideally, you're working with them so that you provide them things that they think would be interesting, and so therefore they cover your team. The flip side of that is, of course, they have to do treat you with respect along those same lines and follow those rules so that they can have access. You have the power to cut them off. You don't have to issue them a pass, right? Members of the media, members of the public. For whatever reason, you don't want them to cover your team, you can deny them that access. So it works two ways. But again, they have the same interest we have: develop an audience, grow an audience, right? This whole thing is about support through participation, growing audience size, value in what you can charge for tickets and sponsorships, and everything is based on the size of your reach, the size of your fan base, the size of your subscribers or readers, and what kind of demographic profile they are that determines what your rates are. Very, very important. So public relations, a huge part of any event management, event operations plan. Hospitality, of course, you might think of this as luxury suites, chalets, backstage passes, VIP areas, premium tickets, food and beverage, catering. So much a part of this is basically being hospitable to those people that are invested in your event or your team, right? Here's that word: experience, satisfying. Again, what's satisfying to one might not be satisfying to somebody else. But the whole point is you want to make sure that every stakeholder, again, not shareholder, but stakeholder, everybody that's got a stake in making sure your event goes well, has a great experience. So that's participants, again, athletes, people that are actually doing the performing, who your fans are, again, your media relations members, all your corporate sponsors, family members, so many other kinds of stakeholders. You have to make sure that their experience when engaging with your event is satisfying. Sponsors use hospitality to do what, right? So if you sell them a hospitality suite, if you sell them a package of hospitality rights and benefits, what do they use them for? Well, they turn around and use them to build their own relationships with their current customers or future customers and clients, those that they're trying to get on board, right? They use these things as tools and assets to generate their own business. They use them. We sell a lot of group tickets, group hospitality to companies who want to take care of their employees and retain good employees, or treat them for good performance on a good quarter or a good year, or loyalty for somebody that's been with the company for a long time. And using our event hospitality assets is a great way for our sponsors and clients to do that. And so, they might take care of good suppliers or vendors they have good relationships with, right? The UPS guy, or anybody else that's a vendor of theirs that takes care of them. They can use our assets to show appreciation in things. Hospitality is one of the 10 most common functions of a sport agency. It's right at the top. I'd say top 3. Again, this harkens a little bit to registration. Again, sales, ticket sales, season ticket sales, mini plans. Sporting events, of course, rely heavily. Sporting events, seasons rely heavily on ticket sales to varying degrees. It's usually one of the top 2 or 3 ways that you generate revenue. And again, I hate the word ticket. Nobody really wants to own a ticket. Nobody is holding a paper ticket usually anymore. It's usually on our phone with a barcode. Nobody wants a ticket anymore. What they want is access. The ticket is just a chit that allows them, they can exchange it for access. What they want is an experience. They want a seat. They want a view, right? We sell them a ticket or a pass or a code that allows them access. So they have that seat, that view, so they can have that experience, right? I hate the word ticket, but it's so common. It's hard to get away from. It sounds like something that you bought when you went to the circus in 1922, but we still use them. And, I guess I should expand my own thinking and think of a ticket as not something that's an old-fashioned ticket, but a ticket is a concept, again, that is really about access. Our ability to charge admission and set those rates, depending on where the event occurs, when, how popular we are, how good we've done at creating demand, how attractive people are. There's so many factors that determine that. And of course, technology, again, what I say before a few slides back, is we want to lower the hurdle, lower the burden, make it as easy as possible for our people to buy tickets, buy passes, to register for our event. And so technology plays a huge part in that these days, right? We all have the power of computers in our hands. Computers in these devices that are more powerful than the computers that sent astronauts to the moon in the 60s and 70s, right? So we all know about technology. I don't need to harp on it, but it's very, very important to event managers and how we sell tickets. Of course, if you're going to put on an event that that you want to reach a wider audience, and people that can't actually maybe attend live, you might broadcast it. You might narrowcast it too, but if you broadcast, you might work with a local television group or a radio group or streaming service that, of course, that delivers your event to a wider audience through a different kind of experience. Sometimes a lot of events, there's no broadcasting aspect to it. There's not a whole lot of people trying to carry a youth soccer tournament on television or even a 5K charity race. All these functions that we've talked about around event management still apply, but broadcasting might not. If you're a sports team or you're the Olympics or you're the World Cup or you're the NCAA Final Four, those are events too. And of course, there's broadcasting elements to that. Our team that we're working on in East Texas will not have enough interest to have people that want to carry our games on television, but there will be enough interest, and it's a good thing for brand building and marketing to stream all our games. So I think primarily the audience there is for families and supporters of athletes that can't travel with them but want to watch their loved ones play. We'll provide that service for them. We'll also, have messages and sponsorships and commercials that we'll sell. How we grow our audience or how that becomes important to what we want to do from a business perspective is remaining to be seen, but it's a service we want to provide. And so we're going to invest in it for all those reasons I mentioned. So, we may record the games and put them up on our own YouTube channel for people to watch later. But we'll live stream all our games. The event management functions, licensing, and merchandise, right? Sales of items that display an event's name or logo are usually only beneficial for large televised multi-day events. I'll take umbrance with that particular line a little bit. There are plenty of people that want souvenir t-shirts, souvenir cap, or souvenir wristband to commemorate any event that they go to, from the smallest event when they take their a kid might be on a traveling softball team to, of course, going to your favorite pro sports team. Merchandising and thus the licensing of that intellectual property that people and groups that want to produce merchandise to sell at your games or in retail in your markets is a huge source of revenue for us as event managers and event marketers. I say huge. It can be huge. It's something you have to have. Again, I think merchandise plays not only a revenue generation function, but of course, a marketing function. People love to show their pride in their favorite team. They love to have a souvenir. They want to tell the world what teams they support. Again, fandom is about telling the world what we want the world to know about us, our selfish sort of ego. We wear our favorite fan t-shirts to let people know who we support, to show our pride in that and to connect with others. And so we as event managers, sport managers, team staff, we love it when people buy that stuff because it's a walking billboard advertisement every time they wear it and show that pride and walk around town. That's another brand image, another impression that's reaching audiences all over the place. So they service a couple of different functions. From a revenue generation standpoint, depending on where you are, it's definitely something you have to budget and plan for. But obviously there are cost and goods involved, cost of labor involved. So again, you have to understand how much money is going out, how to price things. Ideally, you have to sell and move merchandise. And then you can budget for it as a revenue source of revenue for your team. The percentage of overall total gross revenue for team just varies depending on so many factors, but it's also important, very important for what we do. And again, that goes into budget planning, the cost of all the inventory, the production, who's going to sell it, where are we going to sell it, and do we rent that space, or how much space do we have? That sometimes determines how much we want to order. What vendors, what pricing can we get, how much can we negotiate? Obviously, the more you buy, the cheaper per unit things go down. So buying 1,000 t-shirts is a lot less expensive per shirt than buying 200 t-shirts, right? But can you sell 1,000 t-shirts, or is it more likely you're going to only sell 200, right? You have to think about those things. Sometimes we call those things per cap. What are our per capita? How much do we think each person, each participant or fan that comes to our event, how much do we think they are going to spend collectively as a group on merchandise? and whatever that is, $1.50 per cap or $10 per cap would be really, really high. That doesn't mean everybody's spending $1.50 or 10. It just means if we have this crowd capacity and we divide that by all the money we take in from merchandise sales, that can determine our per caps. And so you budget for these things and plan for these things, right? Pre-event planning. If you're a nonprofit or a charity, fundraising is still revenue generation. You got to raise funds so that you can have your event. These are different ways, as we all seen, to keep the public engaged on how much money we're trying to generate for our particular cause, whether it be autism or Alzheimer's awareness or cancer awareness or whatever that happens to be. How do we raise funds from different ways? Sponsorships, donations, teams, individuals that go out there and put together their own teams to ask friends and neighbors in any place we can to generate revenue. We may sell a product, right? Think about the Girl Scouts or kids that sell candy at school, fundraise for different efforts. Cause related marketing, right? What cause are we supporting through our event, and who's our audience that we think wants to help us in our cause? Again, to generate awareness or raise money to help with something, to solve a problem in society. But again, you do these events for that reason. And if all these functions, all these aspects that we talk about all apply, it's just a different angle, right? You're not necessarily selling a professional sport event. You're selling an event that raises awareness and funds that supports a cause that you and those that support you will get behind. But a lot of the aspects are exactly the same. Eventually, you want to reach your goal. Again, the more revenue we generate, the more good in the world we can do, whether you're for profit or nonprofit. Revenue is king, always will be. What are the skills we as event managers and marketers and communicators have to have? There are plenty of organizations like the one that you're attending now, the one I teach at TU and other places I've taught, have these management or these programs specifically to try to teach and train you on what it would take to work in this industry, and all these aspects. So if you love numbers and you love accounting, but you also love sports, you can combine your passions for both those things by being a CMO, or sorry, CFO, or a staff accountant, right? If you love working events and being around people, if you love being creative and coming up with marketing messaging, if you love managing people, if you love that business aspect, there's plenty of programs out there that will teach you. Having an education is important. A formal education maybe could open a few doors for you, but there are plenty of people that I'd be willing to hire if they had no formal education, but could tell me they worked 10 years for this minor league baseball team or for this particular chamber or for this particular charity function. They're going to know all about this stuff that's valuable to me. So education doesn't necessarily imply formal education, but again, there are academic programs, academic pursuits to educate students such as yourselves on some of the skills that it requires to work in the industry. I got my start as a public relations intern with a hockey team in Oklahoma City many, many moons ago. Internships are just invaluable, in my opinion, to literally get your toe in the door. And if you can get an internship with a minor league team or a league, you can learn so much on the job, and you can advance your career a lot quicker than if you're trying to start out getting a job, let's say with the Dallas Cowboys. Nothing wrong with that, but it's a lot harder. You get a job or an internship. Got to take advantage of an internship, which means you're there to learn, listen, prove yourself. I only got started in the industry because after my internship, one of the women that I helped, she decided to go back to school, so she quit her job. That job opened up, and because they knew me as a person, they knew my work ethic, and they saw that I was actually helping her on game night, they said, we want to hire you. That position's the only one we have available, but if you want it, you can have it. And I'm here talking today because I took advantage of that opportunity. I never would have had it if I hadn't done this internship. So they're hard to get. They're very, very competitive. If you get the opportunity to show and showcase who you are and what you can do, They're invaluable, in my opinion, to kickstart your career into the sport business. Same as volunteer or paid opportunities exist in the university community. Again, minor league teams, leagues, events, all over the country. Maybe NSU has some opportunities in their athletic department. Maybe some of you guys are already involved in those and I'm not aware of them. But if you truly are thinking you want to do this as a career, or at least even try it for a while, an internship is also a great way to determine whether you do want to do it. You may do it for a year or half a year and think, man, I don't want to do that. Well, great. You've learned something and you can shift before it's quote unquote too late. So internships are very, very important. I highly encourage them. Some current issues, of course, in event management, obviously related to the risk management plan that we talked about a few slides back, is security. People want to feel safe. Think about what we went through with COVID and everything we had to do if we wanted to go watch a soccer game. I'm telling you, the planning I did, hours and hours and hours of planning on figuring out ways we could get fans to come watch our games and what happens after we open it back up. But in terms of terrorist attacks and unfortunately mass shootings in our country are just very, very concerning. Goes back to that risk management plan, the security plan, all that goes into pre-event planning to make sure people that come feel safe and are secure while they're there. It's a huge issue in our country with everything that's going on. This references the 2013 Boston Marathon. For those of you that remember that, you can think about what that was about. Think about the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade this year. And one person got killed and other people got injured because there were people there with guns. We take our lives in our own hands when we go to any public event. Now, you understand that. You should understand that. We as event planners and people that are our event promoters, we want to make sure as much as we can to communicate that if you come to our event, here's how we're going to keep you safe. Can't guarantee it. Can't prevent everything, but it's a huge issue in the event management part of our industry right now. Hiring more security. Hey, maybe you love sports and law enforcement. There's a job for you right there, you know. Be head of a security department for an event or a team. Social and political concerns. Again, I won't touch on too much, but again, these are current issues in event planning. How do we manage through some of our social changes that we're going through in our country? How do we as event managers speak to them, communicate about them, respect everybody, make sure that we are putting on events where, again, everybody is there to every stakeholder, everybody that engages with our event is made to feel welcome and comfortable. And you can't please everybody, and we shouldn't try. But you know, we have to do what's right. But there are so many different things regarding, you know, legislation and laws, the social climate in our country, our socio-political climate in our country, especially right now in an election year. These are all things that we as event managers and planners have to consider. What do you want to take? Let's say you're a team that's going to be playing this fall right before the presidential election or the other national elections or local elections. Do you want to accept sponsorship money from political candidates? Do you want to give them a platform at your event? Do you want to say no? You know, if people ask you about certain aspects of your event, they have to answer. So are you going to be ready for them? Hey, what about your bathrooms? You know, what's the situation there with transgender people? Whatever it may be. I'm not advocating one way or another. I'm just saying as part of this lecture, we as event managers and planners have to think about these things because they're current issues in our society these days. It's important that we address them. Gosh, there are lots and lots of different kinds of niche sports. I remember a few years ago, I went to a Quidditch tournament. You ever seen one of those? You know, how popular the Harry Potter series has been. There are people that actually go to Quidditch events and, oh gosh, esports. Think about gaming tournaments these days. How do we maybe speak to those demographics, or are we an agency that says, hey, we want to try one of those? Let's put one of those events on. That look maybe lucrative for us. You know, how do we get in on that if we want to get on it? How do we target these niche audiences to our advantage? Even if you don't even put it on, do we want to target these niche audiences around our event by giving something as part of that event? You know, there are plenty of teams around the country through promotional marketing that do these that play games on May the 4th, and they maybe appear to the Star Wars crowd because it's May the 4th be with you, things like that. But a lot of these, thinking about mud runs, and gosh, I can't think of any more off the top of my head, the other ones I just mentioned, but there are lots of things that are people interested in. Then, if you're interested in it, there's an event for it and somebody's planning it. So event management offers a wide variety of career opportunities for you guys. If that's something you want to do, I'd be happy to visit with you individually, one-on-one. We could dive deeper into this. But again, this chapter really covers almost every aspect of everything else we talk about in this course, because ultimately it all leads up to putting something on, putting on an event, putting on a game, putting on a tournament, putting on a season, putting on a broadcast. Everything we talk about comes down to that. We're putting it out into the world. People engage with it. They have a good time. They make memories. We're in the smile business. We're in it here again to make the world a better place. Ultimately is our goal. So you have to do all these and plan all these things and think about all these things so that once you go live, you open those gates and people give you that ticket or scan that code and they come in, have you got everything taken care of? So when they leave, they have a great experience, right? This is what it's all about. Okay. So again, thank you for listening. I will say that I'm very, very busy, as you know, there's no excuse, but if you need to reach me, the quickest way to do that is through text. I'm trying to reply to emails and other things as quickly as possible, but if there's a delay in that communication, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's just when I'm getting to it. Here I am now 3 hours late when I was supposed to record this. It's 9:26 on Monday night, and I normally try to do these at 6. And I'm late because I was working on other things. Again, that's not looking for pity or anything else. I'm just letting you know I appreciate your patience and understanding with me as we go through this semester together. And if you want to communicate with me, the easiest way to do that is call me or text me. Feel free to leave me an email as well. Just understand if I don't get right back to you. It takes me a couple days sometimes to get there, and I'll reply to you as quick as I can. And so again, thank you for your participation. We'll put up the next 2-chapter quiz this week. I'll get it up as quick as I can. I do have to travel a little bit this week. So I'll try to get it up as quick as I can for this week. So, and try to get to grading some of your papers as well. So again, thanks for paying attention. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.